Good morning. I'm Kate Seeley, Vice President of the Middle East Institute. Thank you all so much for joining us today. It's a real honor and a pleasure to welcome today, on this very beautiful day, Dr. Mona Makram-Ebeid. She's visiting us at a time of incredible change and ferment in Egypt, at a time when the impossible is suddenly possible, when the people are able to bring down the authorities, and when the authorities, like the Mubaraks, are suddenly accountable to the people. It's a time when new spaces are being opened up for political participation on the part of everybody, from the Muslim Brotherhood to young liberal secularists to the entire gamut in between. But it's also a time of tension and anxiety in Egypt. Muslim-Christian tensions are on the rise. Salafists, hardline Islamists are emerging as a more aggressive and potent force in Egyptian society. And there's great concern about the state of the Egyptian economy, whose health many believe will be linked to the success of the democratic project in Egypt. We're here to lend her insight into the current changes and developments in Egypt, as well as what to expect in the future as we head toward the parliamentary and presidential elections, is an individual who's been way ahead of her time. Dr. Makram-Ebeid has been calling for change and reform in Egypt, well, for a very, very long time. In 2005, she very presciently penned an article entitled, "Will the Next Democratic Revolution Be Egypt's?" noting that the momentum for political and constitutional reform was gathering pace. And Dr. Makram-Ebeid has a very good sense of such things. She was a member of Parliament from 1990 to 1995, where she frequently pushed for change and reform, including for greater inclusion of women in politics in Egypt. Later, she was appointed as an expert to the UN Committee for Policy Development from 2000 to 2003, and as a regional expert for the Arab states of the UNDP's Capacity 21 program. She founded the Association for the Advancement of Education in Egypt, an NGO which supervised 100 government primary schools, and we know how important the improvement of education is in Egypt. And she was a member of the International Consultation Group for the Middle East at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, and is a founding member of the Arab Organization for Human Rights. And that is just the tip of the iceberg of her many, many accomplishments and awards. She's currently a lecturer in political science and sociology at the American University of Cairo, where she's been teaching since 1983. We're very, very delighted to have Dr. Makram-Ebeid here today. Please join me in welcoming her.
Good morning, everyone. I feel particularly honored and privileged to have this opportunity to share with you some ideas and some thoughts that will help, we hope, to shape the Egypt of our future. I thank the Middle East Institute for giving me this particular opportunity in this timely time. I'm sure that many of you have been transfixed by the heroic images that came out of Tahrir Square. I lived with these young protesters for 8 days and was very privileged to have them elect me after the demonstrations, after the revolution, if you want, as a member of the trustees of the revolution. The images that you saw in Tahrir Square had all of Egypt. It was not only the youth. You had young, old, Muslim, Christians, people from all economic background gathering to lay claim finally to the universal rights enjoyed in democratic societies and which they had been deprived for so long. Their main slogans were, and remember this, dignity, justice, freedom, and human rights. So that's what the Egyptian people themselves have told the world and what they want to achieve. What has made this revolution so beautiful and inspiring around the world, even in Wisconsin, is that our wonderful youth did it not with guns, not with money, but with moral courage, steadfast determination, and without even considering the resort to violence, even when brutal violence was visited upon them. I'm sure that you saw the camels and the mules, and, you know, we were back in the Middle Ages. So in the streets, the youth were able to win their war for freedom dignity and human rights in the hearts of all the Egyptian people who joined them and an army who protected them. And the role of the army was quite important in this very critical moment. I was also very impressed by the young generation of Copts who, for the first time, left back their apathy and steadfastly demanded for their rights when the church was burnt, but who also participated in Tahrir Square in force, protecting the museum, protecting their young Muslim colleagues when they were praying. You must have seen all these images on television. This was one of the scenes that was unforgettable, with a Christian priest saying a mass in the middle of Tahrir Square and the Muslims saying Amen. So that was to show that all the sectarian tension that we have lived through was all triggered by the former regime whose main strategy was a division between the two communities, and Tahrir Square brought back the spirit, let's say, of 1919, where the slogan was, help me. The slogan was, religion for all, الدين لله والوطن للجميع. Religion for God and the homeland for everyone. So this was what you found, that was the spirit that you found in Tahrir Square. So great hopes is pinned on the Copts, finally, that they will participate in force in the new election. It is very important. Now, the other thing that was quite striking is that there were no sectarian slogans, no religious slogans, no Islam is the solution, nothing. There was a strong feeling of conviviality, fraternity between Muslims and Christians, only days, only weeks, let's say, after a church had been burned down on New Year's Eve, as you know. So, as I said, this was the main strategy of the former regime, was to create that sort of sectarian tension all the time, and at the same time to create a bogey out of the Muslim Brotherhood so as to send the message inside and to you, the international community, that if it was not the Mubarak regime, it is violence and extremists. Another important aspect also of the Tahrir Square meetings was no sexual harassment. And yet there were millions who were stuck like in a sardine box. I was there. No sexual harassment. No anti-American or anti-Israeli slogan. Now, I believe that the greatest achievement of the revolution is that it broke down all the barriers of fear that kept this kleptocracy in power for 30 years. But as much as we want the democracy movement to succeed, and it will, this will be a long and rocky road. What the old regime has left us is a country with frail institutions, with a civil society that is not vigorous enough, virtually no recent, because we had democratic traditions before 1952, but no recent democratic traditions in the past 30 years, or any culture of innovation, or any new education, modern system. The only choice the electorate had for the past 30 years was between an autocratic, corrupt regime and a theocratic movement. Both of them refused, but that was the only thing that was in the public space. Today, the pro-democracy people, thanks to the youth, are emerging.